Welcome back to Shop Life. In this video, I'm going to be discussing what you should be checking on your car weekly, monthly, and just whenever you get a chance. So this video will apply to any car, any make, any model. They're all very similar in what you should be checking. So first, I'm going to be starting off by what you should be checking weekly or every time you fill up gas. So what you want to do is you want to check your oil level, you want to check your power steering fluid level, you want to check your coolant level. You also want to check your transmission fluid level if you can. You also want to check your brake fluid level. And while you're checking at the levels, you want to also look at the fluid itself. So use like a white napkin or something and just see how dirty the fluids are and if they should be changed, which I'll be showing you guys when I'm actually checking on the cars. I'll show you when it's dirty and when it should be fine. All right, so I'm going to show you guys the weekly and monthly checks on these 4 different cars. We have my personal car, the 01 330i with S54 swap, 03 F150 5.4 liter, 03 Jetta 1.8 turbo, and an 01 325i. Let's go and get started with the 325. To check the oil on this car, you're going to go ahead and just pull out the dipstick, go ahead and wipe it clean. Ideally, you would want to have the car warmed up and then cut off for about 5 minutes. So pretty much 5 minutes of cool down time before you go ahead and check the oil. And that's pretty much for any car. Our goal is to have it on this middle section. So let's go ahead and see where it's at. It is almost on the middle section, which means it is about half a quart low. Now we have the 03 Jetta 1.8 turbo engine. The oil dipstick is in the front. Clean it first. On this one, you want to have it right in those little dotted section right there. And it is perfect. Now we have this 03 F150. The oil dipstick's on this side, on the driver's side. And this one actually labels minimum and maximum. And we're pretty much all the way filled up. And now we have the S54. The oil dipstick's right here on the driver's side. Also all the way filled up. Alright, this is the 01 325 power steering fluid. The reservoir is right here. It's very common for you to have some sort of seepage on the reservoir itself because there's a hole for whenever it starts building too much pressure and if it starts overflowing. Go ahead and wipe it clean. And you can see this one's a little low. It should be right here up to the second line. And usually on the power steering cap, it will tell you what type of fluid to use. Same with the oil. For the oil filler cap, it will tell you what type of oil to use. This one says ATF oil only, but you still want to double check before you buy any fluid. Just go online, do some research, or check your owner's manual. The power steering fluid on the Jetta is right here in this black container. It's got this little stick to pull out. This one you can see is between the minimum and maximum. This one's fine. On this one, we don't have to take off the cap. It actually has a marking on the reservoir itself where it says minimum and maximum. Just check that. You can still take off the cap and dip a clean paper towel or something in there just to see the condition of the fluid itself. On the S54, the power steering fluid's all the way underneath the intake. You can still reach in there and get it, but it's practically the same concept as the E46, just in a different location. You want to check the coolant once the engine is cold. That way you don't risk of depressurizing the system and all of the coolant overflowing. So as you see, it gives you a diagram on the E46s of where it should be. The minimum, the stick should be right level. Maximum, it should be out about ½ an inch. This one is a little bit lower than it needs to be. So if you have to top off your coolant, you can use distilled water if you don't have coolant available, or use the proper type of coolant that is required by your vehicle. On the Jetta, we have a clear container, and as you can see, there's a minimum and maximum mark. The minimum is the lower line, the maximum is the top line. We're below the minimum line, which means we are a little bit low and we need to top it off. This one tells you what type of coolant to get, which is G12. Now on the truck, it is also clear, a little bit yellowy container, and it also has markings. The markings are on the container, and you just have to check and see where the fluid level is. If you need, you can use some kind of light and just shine the light through the top of the container. And as you can see, this one is right at the minimum level, which is fine. We don't need to refill it or we don't need to top it off, but we'll just keep our eye on it. The S54 expansion tank is on the passenger side, but it's practically the same concept, and it tells you where it needs to be on the container itself. As you see, you could hear it depressurize, and mine is perfect. Most BMWs do not have transmission fluid dipsticks, so there's no way for you to just check by just opening up the hood. what you have to do is you have to jack the car up, make sure it's completely level on both sides, and then you have to take out the fill plug out of the transmission. And when you remove the fill plug, you should have a little stream of fluid coming down. If it isn't, that means that you need to top it off. And in order to top off the transmission fluid on these cars, you have to use a manual pump, and you have to pump the fluid in from the fill plug. Now on the Jetta, we also do not have a dipstick. The only thing we have a little gauge that's underneath the battery tray in that corner right there. So you would have to remove some of these hoses, or at least move them out of the way before you can pull that out. And it also has a little gauge on it for you to check. The only car that I have with the transmission dipstick is this Ford F-150. And it tells you it's labeled transmission fluid, and it tells you what type of fluid to use. On these vehicles, if you need to refill or top off your transmission fluid, you do it from the dipstick. And as you see on here, it says do not add, and it tells you when to check. If it's cold, you want it at that level. If it's hot, you want it at that level. And if you have it above that level, that means do not add. So we are perfectly fine. Again, we have a BMW, no transmission dipstick, same concept as the 325i. So almost all brake fluid is gonna have a clear container where you can easily tell between the minimum and maximum markings. On here, the max is right here at the top, the minimum is at the bottom, another arrow. And one thing you do wanna check is just take off the cap, and you'll see a little bit of fluid on there, and just check the condition of the fluid. As you can see, this one is pretty golden, which is the color it's supposed to be, so it's fine. When your brake fluid is dirty, that means that you're pretty much pushing back metal particulates every time you brake through your whole braking system, and you need to go ahead and flush it out. On the Jetta, the brake fluid is right here, right attached to the brake booster, and the markings are on the front of the reservoir, so you have to duck down and look at it from there. You want to have to shine a light. As you can see, the brake fluid on this car is low. It is below the minimum mark, so we need to add some. Now we have the truck. The fluid is right attached to the brake booster again. It has a clear window where you can see how much fluid is in here. Since the truck is parked at a little bit of an angle, the fluid is leaning to the front, but it is well above the minimum line and below the maximum line just a little bit. But the fluid is very dirty. As you can tell, it's almost black. So I do need to flush this brake fluid out. Now on my car, same concept as the 325i. There's a mark on the top, max, one on the bottom that says minimum. We're pretty much at the max, so we are good. As you can see, mine is a little bit darker. It's almost more of a burnt gold, which means it's about time that I need to go ahead and change my fluid out. One thing, every time you take your brake fluid or any of your fluid caps off, you want to make sure the top of it's clean so you don't drop any dirt into the reservoir itself. You also want to check your tire tread. So just check for any, like, you know, any screws or anything like that. Check your tire pressure with a little tire pressure gauge. All right, so now let's go ahead and check out the tires. This truck has brand new tires, but I'll go ahead and show you guys how to check the tread. What you want to do is you want to use a penny, stick it in here upside down. If the top of Abraham Lincoln's head is showing, that means you need to go ahead and replace your tires. If it's not, you're fine. If it's almost halfway through his head, that means your tires are practically new. What you want to also check is you want to check for uneven wear. So if the inside of the tires are wearing out more, that means you have too much negative camber. If the outside is wearing out more, you have too much positive camber. If both of the sides are wearing out, but the inside is not, that means you're low on air, and so on and so forth. And then you want to check the sidewall for any bubbles. So you can just feel the sidewall. There's no bubbles, go ahead and feel the back side of it. And there's no bubbles. So you want to do this to all 4 tires, go all around. Even check your spare if you can. That you can just do once a month. Just check the spare, make sure the tire pressure is good. To check your tire pressure, get a tire pressure gauge. Go ahead and undo the valve and go ahead and stick your tire pressure gauge there and check what the pressure is. On your door or in your user's manual, you will have a reading of what the tire pressure is supposed to be. If you have aftermarket wheels with different size tires, that reading might be a little bit different. So just check your tire pressure and just make sure it's within the specifications. And you also want to look visually for any oil leaks or any other type of leaks that might be occurring in your car. So a quick and easy way to determine that is just by smelling around. If your car smells like it's burning something, you'll get like a sweet smell if it's coolant. You'll get like an oily smell, which, I mean, even if you don't smell it, you could probably visually see the smoke coming out when your engine's warm. So just take a visual look and just look around the engine bay and stuff and see if you see anything that should not be there, like any fluids resting on some surface, or seeping out through gaskets. So you want to check all of that. So that's what you should be checking weekly. So for monthly, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and take a look at your maintenance schedule depending on how much you've driven in the month. So if you're due for oil change or a brake fluid change, any of that, you want to go ahead and do that. And even if you're not due for like a brake fluid flush or brake fluid change, and you see that your fluid is starting to get dirty, or it looks burnt, or it smells weird, you want to go ahead and get it replaced. Why wait when it's already bad? If you don't replace the fluids and you just keep going at it, eventually something else is going to go bad, which is going to be more expensive than just a minor fluid change. You also want to go ahead and take a look at all your windshield wipers. Make sure all the rubber on the wiper is fine. Make sure it's cleaning the windshield properly. If your windshield is all pitted up, you want to try, at least clay barring it, or use like a razor blade or anything like that to remove some of the marring on the windshield, so that the windshield wiper has a smoother surface to wipe. So now we're going to check the windshield wipers. Go ahead and lift them up. What you want to check for is make sure that there's a very solid edge on the windshield wiper. Also check for any cracks within the windshield wiper blade, and see if the rubber material is brittle or if it's warped at all. These wipers are fine, so we don't have any problems. You also want to check your windshield itself. In order to do that, you can see that there's a bunch of little chips and pits on the windshield, but what you can do is just use like a plastic bag or something, I have a glove on, and just feel the windshield and see if it's smooth or if it's got a lot of imperfections. This one has a few imperfections, nothing major. So what I would do is I'll probably just clay bar the whole windshield, then just clean it really well, and that should be fine. You also want to go ahead and look around your paintwork of your car for any chips, any deep scratches that might rust, and if they are, you want to go ahead and fill those in. Now we want to go ahead and check the condition of the paint. As you can see, I've driven this car cross country quite a few times, so there's rock chips almost everywhere on the hood and on the front of the car. These rock chips, some of them were already here before we even got the car and have rusted a little bit. This one is through the clear coat and the base coat, but it is stuck at the primer, so it's not going to rust, but we will still want to fill it in so it doesn't look like a black spot. All these rock chips, just go ahead and fill them in. There are more right here, as you can see, and I'll make a video on how to fill in the rock chips using the proper methods. And this might be going a little bit overboard, but if you could, just go ahead and jack up your vehicle so all the wheels are off the ground and just enough space for you to slide underneath if you can. And once you have your car jacked up, shake around your wheel to see if there's any play developing in any of the bushings, or if your wheel bearings are bad, you can just spin the wheel and see all that. You'll also get a better look at your brake system, your struts, pretty much all your suspension. Even you can see the back of the wheel and the back sidewall of the tires to see if there's any bubbles or anything like that. So whenever you jack it up, you just have better access to see everything. This right here is not, any of the stuff that I'm saying is not mandatory, it's just suggested. That way you can stay on top of your car, especially if you drive your car long distances. You want to make sure that the car everything is fine, and you can just get in it and go without having to worry about anything going bad on the trip. So it's always good to be able to check everything before it goes wrong. So when you have the car jacked up, you can even just visually look underneath the car, so you can see the transmission pan and all that, see any leaks that are forming, any oil pan leaks. You can check all the other bushings that you can't really see when the car's on the ground. Just look at them visually if they look torn and stuff like that. At least you have some idea of what's going on with your car. You don't have to do that, like I said. You can just get people to look at it whenever you go for an oil change or something. They usually tell you when there's something going bad. But you want to make sure that they're not just telling you, that way you're spending extra money and there is actually something wrong. That's why they're telling you. And if you look at it yourself, you'll be able to double check whatever someone else has told you, and you can pretty much know what's going on with your car. And another thing I like to recommend once a month is to wax your car. Depending on where you live, you might need to do it more. Depending on the climate, you might not have opportunities to do it as much, especially in the winter. But if you can, just wash your car, put a good coat of wax on it, and in between the month. I know some people like to wash the car weekly, and if you are doing that, you can just wash your car and just do like a spray wax in between actual waxing of the car. Another thing you want to do is you want to just clean your interior fully, condition leather if you have it and all that. That's just to maintain your interior for a longer period of time without any cracks or any of that forming. If you see any stains, like coffee stains, you can go ahead and clean them up before they get very, very deep into the fibers, and then they won't come out. And one other thing that you might want to check monthly is your belts. So your serpentine belt, your drive belt, all of those. whatever you can see in the front of the engine or on the side of the engine, just take a look visually with the flashlight for any cracks developing in the belts and stuff like that, because once the belt starts getting cracked, it has a tendency of letting go after a certain period of time, and if your belt does let go, it's going to take a lot more stuff with it and not just the belt. So you might end up having a more expensive repair than you would have had initially if you would have replaced just the belt. So you want to go ahead and take a look at that as well. If you guys want me to do more videos like this, where I just give you recommendations on what you should be doing and stuff like that, feel free to leave a comment down below. I can always post maintenance schedules as well, like what the certain mileage of certain cars, what you should be doing at certain mileage. Or if you want to get in touch with me for getting some work done on your car over here in Southern California, feel free to message me on Instagram at ShopLifeTV. And also, if you guys want to stay up to date with me on what's going on in my day-to-day life, I also have a vlog channel. It'll be linked down below. It's called Shop Life Vlogs, and subscribe to that channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.